Bonnie Turner says she was raped not by a stranger, but by a man who had been her partner.
At some point during the night when I was fast asleep, I became aware that he was on top of me and he started to rape me. And I initially thought it was a nightmare because I was in complete darkness and I couldn't move my body at all. My voice wouldn't work. I felt completely paralysed.
She says it left her confused and scared. But when he sent several messages apologising, she picked up the courage to report it.
Most people who've experienced rape or sexual violence will never have any kind of evidence like this.
What did you feel when the CPS dropped the case?
I was devastated.
Miss Turner, who's waived her right to anonymity, was part of a legal case by a coalition of women's organisations claiming Crown Prosecution Service policy, in effect, led to a sharp drop in the number of rape prosecutions. Today, the Court of Appeal dismissed the case, but the timing could not be more pertinent. As women take to the streets after the death of Sarah Everard, campaigners say today's decision still leaves many questions about why so few cases of rape and sexual violence ever make it to charge. As the number of rapes reported surges, prosecutions have plummeted. In the last 4 years, the numbers of reported rapes went up by 1/3, while the number of prosecutions went down by more than half.
I think it really matters to have some kind of vindication about how badly the system is failing survivors of rape, is failing women on a large scale. We have had numerous conversations with the police, even in the last few weeks, with police officers on the front line saying they're at their wits' end because they will try to refer a case to the CPS and the CPS will say, no, we'll never charge this one, it's not good enough. And this is happening even when police officers feel that they're strong cases that a few years ago would have resulted in a charge.
This is not just about rape or sexual assault. 2 women are killed at the hands of their current or former partner every week in England and Wales. 1 in 3 women will experience domestic abuse. Campaigners say there is an epidemic of violence against women. And for the thousands and thousands who took to social media or to the streets following the death of Sarah Everard, the message is clear. They don't trust the police to protect them, nor the system to deliver justice once they've been harmed.
I would say to women, first and foremost, the criminal justice system is here to protect you, and it is here to produce justice in these cases.
Do you understand, though, why women don't feel that?
I absolutely understand the feelings of women on this issue. I absolutely understand why women have so many fears in relation to going about their day-to-day business. However, I would continue to encourage women to come forward and report. We have made this in the Crown Prosecution Service an absolute priority.
Less than 3% of cases reported to the police went on to be charged. If that is evidence of it being a priority, then many women would wonder, you know, what would happen if it wasn't a priority?
The landscape has changed considerably over the past few years. We've seen a change in the way we all interact in terms of our intimate relationships. We've seen a change in the use of digital material and social media. All this has added to what is, in any event, a very complex crime to prosecute.
What is your direct message to those women who simply don't trust the CPS, the police, the criminal justice system to give them the justice they seek?
I would say report offences that are committed against you. Trust us to consider those cases fairly, impartially.
As protests continue this evening in London, there is much talk of this being a pivotal moment. But will it bring real change?
I think the time is now for the government, for MPs, for people in power to act, because I think it's going to look the statements that they have made are going to look very hollow. And I was listening earlier to Boris Johnson speaking about the need for women who complain to feel that that will be addressed. Well, at the moment, that is not happening on an enormous scale.
I feel really, really angry. You know, yeah, as I say, I'm hopeful that something will change, but I don't think enough will happen. I hope I'm wrong about that, but I don't think enough will happen.
As women march, the government has promised to listen, and there are no shortage of stories. The Home Secretary reopened a call for evidence on violence against women on Friday. So far, nearly 80,000 have responded.
Well, we did ask the Home Office and the Ministry of Justice for an interview, to no avail. So we asked 10 Downing Street if any minister from across government was available to discuss the issue of stopping violence against women. But no one was available this evening. Well, earlier I spoke to the Conservative MP Maria Miller, who was chair of the Women and Equalities Committee. I began by asking her whether she believed the Prime Minister was listening to women.
Well, following events of Saturday night, when women really wanted to make their voices heard, it's right that the Prime Minister should listen. And by reopening the consultation on the violence against women strategy, women do have an opportunity to very directly influence the government's policy in the coming months on this really important issue.
So are you rather dismayed that the policing bill sees the government proposing a longer sentence for people damaging statues than the sentence applied for many violent crimes against women at the moment?
The bill that's before the House of Commons today really was not designed to tackle the issues that face women and girls when they're experiencing sexual harassment. Although many of the measures, in fact all of the measures that are in the sentencing bill do apply to women as much as they do to men. But rather than trying to retrofit into an existing piece of government legislation really important measures that women want to see changed, we need a separate bill, and I believe a bill that really tackles the issue of sexual harassment that women face, not just in our communities, but online, in our schools. These are all issues that the Women and Equality Select Committee have looked at in detail, and they really warrant their own piece of legislation, not to be simply shoehorned into something which is designed for a completely different purpose.
Rape convictions are at an all-time low in England and Wales. Today, campaigners failed in a legal challenge, but is it any wonder that women don't come forward and report rape because they don't have any faith that it's going to be taken seriously by the justice system?
Well, I think that problem of women feeling like their concerns and their experiences won't be taken seriously isn't just an issue when it comes to, isn't only an issue when you come to rape cases, it's across the board, that women feel that really any sexual harassment they experience could well be ridiculed or ignored, or they could even be blamed for that, those instances that they experience. So I think we need to look across the board about how we can ensure that the police in this country and reporting mechanisms support women not only with those initial reports, but also through the whole of the judicial process.
And you can see behind me the outpouring of grief and respect for Sarah Everard. How big a moment do you think this is? Historically, will we look back on this as a real turning point in the way society at large treats women?
I do think there's an opportunity here to harness this deep concern to really register with the government that what needs to happen next, and make sure that those real concerns can be registered and that they can see change in the future, and that piece of legislation coming forward to tackle what is a pressing concern for more than half of the population in this country.
Maria Miller, thanks very much. Well, I'll be talking in a moment to Andrea Simon, who's director of the End Violence Against Women Coalition. First, though, I'm joined by Bel Ribeiro-Addy, the MP for this area in London, where Sarah Everard was last seen. Bel Ribeiro-Addy, the Conservatives insist from the Prime Minister down that they are listening to women. Do you believe that?
Well, at this stage, no, I don't. As you can see, they're putting forward a bill tomorrow, which, as far as I'm concerned, does not include any specific measures to end violence against women. Over the years, we've seen a decrease in resources going to ending violence against women, And in their time in office, they have done nothing to change the culture in which we view violence against women.
Well, the government do insist, and you know, the Labour is voting against that bill, but they do say that it extends the scope of the Sexual Offences Act, for example. It strengthens management of sex offenders, and it ends the halfway release point for violent offenders. There are good measures in that bill, aren't there?
Well, if those measures are so good, then why, firstly, have they not brought them before? And secondly, why do they have to be coupled with measures which effectively silence women's voices? There are so many different parts of that bill which affect the right to protest, and we're seeing so much disproportionality in sentencing. So rape offences, for example, are now getting much lower sentences. Some people are not getting sentenced at all. And we're seeing in this bill that they're going to give you up to 10 years for defacing a statue. Now, what message does that send to our society? That you get more time in prison for violating or destroying a statue or defacing a statue than you would for attacking a woman.
Well, how do you change that constructively with the Conservatives? What do you do about those rape convictions? How do you as MPs make a change to that?
Well, firstly, in this area, since the disappearance of Sarah Everard and her tragic murder, women in the area have been reporting more instances of attacks and assaults and harassment against them. And that means in the past they haven't necessarily done this. So we have to improve the reporting process overall, making women feel comfortable. Some of the questions that women are asked when they come forward with these issues is completely disgraceful. And then how often they get justice is also completely disgraceful. And we need to look at the culture. If we have a culture which would put a statue above a woman, then we've clearly got it wrong. And the government needs to address that urgently.
Well, in this on Clapham Common tonight, you know, it's quite dark, paths through the common. Would you feel safe walking that route yourself?
Not by myself, I would be completely honest. And so we do need to look at safety in the area overall. But it is just tragic that in this area, across the country, women continuously feel unsafe. That shouldn't be something that they feel just because they are a woman, and we need to look very, very at specific measures to tackle that, starting with changing the culture, starting with looking at our legislation and addressing those issues as to what we value in this society.
Belle Rivera-Addy, thanks very much. Well, let's talk now to Andrea Simon from the End Violence Against Women Coalition. Big disappointment in the court today. What are you going to do about it?
It's hugely disappointing that the courts found that they weren't able to determine the reason for the catastrophic collapse that there's been in rape prosecutions. And I think that's going to have a huge concern amongst the public.
Would you take this to the Supreme Court?
We would like to see political action happening now. I think all our eyes need to now turn to the government and what they're going to do to tackle violence against women and girls, which has been so prevalent. You know, women are feeling unsafe on our streets, they're feeling unprotected, and the outcome of this case has not provided any answers.
Well, the Prime Minister says he's listening, so what do you say to him that he should do specifically to tackle those rape convictions?
Well, I mean, we've seen in the crime bill today that politicians want to appear tough on crime by lengthening sentences, but, you know, that's not going to work when the majority of cases they're not reported and they don't go through the criminal justice system. We need to see leadership and accountability for our justice agencies if women are to feel confident that they come forward and report and have any prospect of justice.
When you look at the astonishing figures, really, of how few rape reports actually go through to a conviction, what message does that send to women? Is it, as some have said, akin to decriminalising rape?
It is. I mean, I think if you look at the statistics, less than 3% of cases that are reported going forward and being charged, that amounts to the effective decriminalisation of rape. And women are not supported through the system. They're waiting for years, often, when they've reported it, to see their case go to court. And during that time, there isn't that wraparound support and advocacy for them. So we need to see the decades of underfunding of our women's sector services being reversed, so that women have that support in order to participate in the system.
Andrea Simon, thanks very much for joining us.